So what is ectopic pregnancy? The definition, we start with the definition. Any pregnancy where the fertilized ovum gets implanted and develops in a site other than the normal uterine cavity. It represents a serious hazard to a woman's health and reproductive potential, requiring prompt recognition and early aggressive intervention. So this is the picture showing it is a fallopian tube where the pregnancy occurred, and the place where the uterine cavity other than that where the fertilization occurs is known as ectopic. So this is the one diagrammatic presentation, this one in which the fertilized ovum is implanted and develops outside the normal uterine cavity. So what are the implantation sites? It is categorized into extrauterine and uterine. In extrauterine, it is further divided into tubal pregnancy, ovarian, and abdominal. About 95 to 96% pregnancies occur in tube, in ectopic. So in which ampulla is the most common, about 70%. Then isthmus, about 25%. Interstitial, about 18%, and infundibulum 2%. These are the parts of fallopian tubes. Ampulla, isthmus, interstitial, and infundibulum are the 4 parts of fallopian tube. Other than that is ovarian, and third one is abdominal. In abdominal, it is further divided into primary and secondary. In secondary type, it is maybe intraperitoneal or extraperitoneal, that will be occurring broad ligament. And it is very rare to see in extraperitoneal ectopic pregnancy. It may happen in uterine also, but other than uterine cavity, the places where ectopic can happen, one is cervical. It is about less than 1% incidence may be seen. Then angular, the cesarean. Cesarean means if the patient having prior LSCS, in which in the second pregnancy the ectopic may happen in cesarean section site. And fourth one is cornual. So these are the some commonest site for implantation site for ectopic pregnancy. So this is the diagram showing where the ectopic can happen. This is your uterus, your uterine cavity. This is the fallopian tube, and this is the part of the fallopian tube. We discussed the ampulla region, the most common site, then the isthmic, your interstitial site, and last 2% infundibular site. Ovarian ectopic can happen. Your intramural pregnancy can happen here. Your cervical, this is the cervix, this is a canal of the uterine cavity and the exit in the vagina. The cervical pregnancy can happen here. So these are the diagrammatic pictures showing where the ectopic can occur. So what are the incidences and mortality? The incidences increased in the patient having pelvic inflammatory diseases and with the intrauterine copper device, or if patient having any tubal surgeries or having assisted reproductive techniques like IVF. So rate in India is 5.6 to 10,000 deliveries. Late marriages and late childbearing, more than 2% can have ectopic. Assisted reproductive technique, more than 5% incidences may increase the chance for ectopic pregnancies. And the recurrence rate is 15% after first pregnancy and 25% after second ectopic. So what are the etiology? Any factor that causes the delayed transport of the fertilized ovum through the tube. Fallopian tube favors implantation in a tubal mucosa itself, thus giving rise to a tubal ectopic pregnancy. And these factors may be congenital or acquired. So what are the etiology of congenital causes? So any congenital abnormalities like tubal hypoplasia, tortuosity of the fallopian tube, congenital diverticuli, accessory ostia, partial stenosis, elongation, intramural polyp, or entrap the ovum on its way. So these are some of the causes of congenital factors. Then acquired factor, the most common is pelvic inflammatory diseases 6 to 10 times increases the incidence of ectopic pregnancy, and the most common bacterial infection cause of PID is Chlamydia trachomatis. And second one is the contraceptive failure. Most common copper T. Then progesterone is about 17%. It is the most increases the chances for ectopic pregnancy. Then Winnie pills about 4 to 10%, and Norplant about 30% increases the chances for ectopic pregnancy. And what the tubal surgeries failure. So it is very important to see what technique are surgeons adapt to take during sterilization, so that the tubal surgery's failure can result in ectopic pregnancy. So different from the technique and age of the patient. So if we use bipolar cauterization during sterilization, it increases about 65%, results in ectopic pregnancy if failure occurs. And in unipolar cautery, about 17%. If we use silicone rubber band to ligate the fallopian tube, it increases the chances by 29%. Then the interval self-injectomy, it increases the chances by 43%. Postpartum self-injectomy, it increases by 20%. Then if the surgeons have the patient get tubectomized, then the reversal surgery, if happens, then what are the chances for having the patient for ectopic pregnancy? Depends upon the method of sterilization and the site of tubal occlusion and the residual tubal length. So these are the three main factors which can determine your ectopic pregnancy: method, site of tubal, and the residual tubal length. And the V-anastomosis of the cauterized tube, about 15%, ectopic can happen. Then the reversal of Pomeroy's by less than 3%. So most commonest technique we adapt to take for sterilization is modified Pomeroy's technique. So in etiology, this is acquired cause the tubal reconstructive surgery. 4 to 5 times increases the chances. Then assisted reproductive technique, ovulation induction, IVF-ET, and give 4 to 7%. The risk of heterotropic pregnancy is about 1%. And if the patient having previous ectopic pregnancy, so 7 to 15% chances of repeat ectopic pregnancy can happen in the same patient. The other risk factors, like if the age of the patient is 35 to 45 years, then previous induced any abortion history, then any history of previous pelvic surgeries, cigarette smoking, DES exposure in utero, if the patient is having infertility, salpingitis, systemica nodosa, it is the abnormality seen in the fallopian tube, that is congenital form, and genital tuberculosis, then fundal fibroid and adenomyosis of tube, and any transperitoneal migration of ovum. These are the some other risk factors for ectopic pregnancy. There are some hypotheses behind your ectopic pregnancy. One of the most common hypothesis we learn is Iffy hypothesis. This tells about the theory of reflex of menstrual fluid through the fertilized ovum into the tube. So factors facilitating the negation of ovum in tube is premature degeneration of zona pellucida and increased testicular reaction, and if the patient having any tubal endometriosis. Evolution, the tubal pregnancies rapidly invade the mucosa, feeding from the tubal vessels, which becomes enlarged and engorged. The segment of the affected tube is distended as the pregnancy grows. Possible outcomes of such abnormal gestation are as follows. So what are the changes? What are the morbid anatomy can happen? The changes in the fallopian tube is like implantation occurs in the intercolumnar or in between the mucosal folds. Then there may be a residual change which is minimal. Then muscle hypertrophy is minimum. Hyperplasia is When hypertrophy is minimum in the fallopian tube, then the intramuscular implantation occurs. There is a formation of pseudocapsule within the fallopian tube and the dorsifoliation erosion of blood vessels. So these are the changes occur in the fallopian tube. The pregnancy is unable to survive owing to its poor blood supply, thus resulting in a state form. First, tubal abortion may occur. Then, if it is not occur, then resorption, which is very rare, and the most common outcome is the tubal rupture. Because of the poor blood supply, if it is all happened in the uterine cavity, then pregnancy continues till term pregnancy. But if it is occur in the fallopian tube, it hampering the blood supply, so pregnancy is unable to survive to its fullest, and it results in the three form. In the tubal abortion, it may happen resorption, which is very rare, and the most common outcome is the tubal rupture. So, if the pregnancies occur in the ischemic portion of the tubal pregnancy, it survive up to 6 to 8 weeks, and in ampullary region about 8 to 12 weeks, and interstitial about 4 months. 4 months it can survive. So the most longest is the interstitial ectopic pregnancy. Abortion is common in ampullary pregnancies, whereas rupture is in ischemic. So most common tubal rupture is seen in the ischemic region. One reaction is seen in ectopic pregnancy, which is very common, and it is an MCQ-like question in the ectopic pregnancy. So it is named as Arias-Stella reaction. What is this? It is characterized by a benign focal and unusual residual changes in the presence of chorionic tissue. So in this reaction, we see the loss of polarity, heliomorphism, hyperchromatic nuclei, vacuolated cytoplasm, intraluminal budding. So seen in ectopic pregnancy, but is it not specific for it? Can also be seen in uterine pregnancy, but it is mainly seen in the ectopic side. So this is a picture. It is in ongoing laparoscopic surgery. We see the ruptured ectopic site, and this is your tubal abortion. This is a clot seen in the abdominal cavity. This is the tube, and the abortion is occurred, and it is almost ruptured case. So what are our clinical approach to the patient? Diagnosis can be done by the history and the detailed examination and judicious use of investigation. So any past history of PID, any history presenting with the tubal surgeries, current contraceptive measures should be asked to the patient. Wide spectrum of clinical presentation from asymptomatic patient to others with acute abdomen and in shock. So the clinical approach, the diagnosis history can tell you everything about the ectopic pregnancy. So what is acute ectopic pregnancy? This classical triad is present in about 50% of patients with the ruptured ectopic pain. The most constant feature in 95% patients, variable in severity and in nature. History of amenorrhea is present about 60 to 80% of patients. Sometimes patients don't understand about their amenorrhea. Sometimes they're telling like having regular menstruation with spotting. So it is considered when the patient tells about the spotting, you should consider about the amenorrhea. So there may be delayed period or slight spotting at the time of menses. Then third triad is the vaginal bleeding. Scanty dark brown, feeling of nausea, vomiting, fainting attack, syncope due to reflex vasomotor disturbance. Abdominal pain is the most common feature, and the pain is radiating towards the shoulder tip. On examination, patient is restless, is in agony, looks blanched, pale, sweating with clammy skin, feature of shock, tachycardia, and hypotension may be present. And for abdomen examination, abdomen is tense, tender, mostly in the lower abdomen, and shifting dullness is present. Rigidity may be present. And for speculum examination, there may be minimal bleeding may be present. And on per vaginal examination, uterus may be bulky, deviated to opposite side, condyx is tender, excitation pain on movement of cervix. And POD may be full uterus bloats as even in water. So all this about further acute ectopic. Now the second topic is chronic ectopic pregnancy. What are the symptoms? So it can be diagnosed by high clinical suspicion. Patient had previous attack of acute pain from which she has recovered. She may have amenorrhea history, then vaginal bleeding with having dull pain in abdomen, and with bladder and bowel complaint like dysuria, frequency or retention of urine. And sometimes the patient may complain with a rectal tendency. So all these are the symptoms for chronic ectopic pregnancy. Then unruptured ectopic. So high degree of suspicion and ectopic conscious clinician can diagnose. So diagnosed accidentally in laparoscopy or laparotomy. The clinical features like delayed period, spotting with discomfort in lower abdomen, and tenderness in the lower abdomen, and PV findings should be done gently. Uterus in normal in size, form, small tenderness may be felt in the cornices. The investigation of choice is transvaginal sonography and your serum beta HCG. And third resort is laparoscopy. So this is one picture where we see the ovary. Behind that we see the fallopian tube and the ectopic site is seen. The large bulge is here and this is the fimbrial part of fallopian tube. This is unruptured case of ectopic pregnancy. So diagnosis. In recent years, in spite of increase in the incidence of ectopic pregnancy, there has been a fall in the case of fatality rate. So this is due to the widespread introduction of diagnostic tests and increased awareness of the serious nature of the disease. This has resulted in early diagnosis and effective treatment. Now the rate of tubal rupture is as low as 20%. So patient with acute ectopic can be diagnosed clinically. Blood should be drawn for hemoglobin, complete blood count, blood grouping and cross-matching, serology and coagulation profile, and should be catheterized to know the urine output. If the patient having less than 30 ml urine per hour, then it is considered as the polyuria. And the causes of polyuria is the most common. The patient may be in shock. Due to that, the patient's urine output is decreased. Second bedside test we can do is the urine pregnancy test. It is positive in 95% cases, and ELISA is sensitive to 10 to 15 milli-international unit ml of beta HCG and can be detected on 24th day after LMP. And the second bedside test we can do is culdocentesis. About 70 to 90% cases can be done. We take 116 to 18 gauge lumbar puncture needle to the posterior fornix into the POD. We introduce that lumbar puncture needle and we aspirate the needle. We show if the positive tap is considered when about 0.5 ml of non-clotting blood came out with a lumbar puncture needle. So this is the second technique we can do bedside, named as culdocentesis. Now the diagnosis with the imaging, with the ultrasonography. In the recent year, the transvaginal sonography is the broad and very specific and sensitive diagnostic tool for diagnose any kind of pelvic pathology, and as it is very important for the ectopic also. So it is more sensitive. It detects the intrauterine gestational sac at 4 to 5 weeks at its earliest, and at beta HCG level as low as 1500 international unit per liter. So in endometrial cavity, we see a trilaminar endometrial pattern. So there may be a pseudogestational sac and residual cyst may be seen. So what is pseudosac? All pregnancies induce an endometrial decidual reaction, and stuffing of the decidua can create an intracavitary fluid collection called the pseudosac. So in early gestational sac, what are the differences? And when the pseudosac is formed, so location in the endometrial cavity in early gestational sac is eccentrically located, but pseudosac is located midline within a cavity. The shape is in a round shape. Pseudosac is irregular. Border, double border is present in the early gestational sac, which is normal, and the ring sign is present in the pseudosac. Vascularity is high, but pseudosac is avascular, and the pattern in early gestational sac is peripheral. So, what is decidual cyst? It is identified as an anechoic area lying within the endometrium, but remote from the canal, and often at the endometrial myometrial border. In adnexa, about 15 to 30% an extrauterine yolk sac and embryo seen in the fallopian tubes confirms a tubal pregnancy. A halo or tubal ring surrounded by a thin hypoechoic area caused by subserosal edema can be seen. It is all theoretical, but when we see during operation or laparoscopy, one cyst is visible in ectopic pregnancy. So and then the rectouterine cul-de-sac, the free fluid with the adnexal mass. We can see, and it is most suspicious and suggestive of ectopic pregnancy. So now the color Doppler came in the sonography form with the transvaginal. During transvaginal sonography, we can do the color Doppler sonography. It improves the accuracy to identify the ectopic site. Then any placental shape is present. It is give the pattern like ring of fire. As here we can see the color Doppler flow in the vascular region is seen, and it is look like the ring of fire pattern, and the blood flow outside the uterine cavity. The red marks all the blood flow outside the uterine cavity. It means the pregnancy is outside of uterine cavity. Then your transabdominal sonography. First method of choice to investigate is the transvaginal. After that, the transabdominal sonography we can do. It can also identify the gestational sac, but 5 to 6 weeks. The transvaginal identified at 4 to 5 weeks. 4 to 5 weeks, and it identified at 5 to 6 weeks. And the beta Cg level at which the intrauterine gestational sac is seen in transabdominal is 1800, whereas in transvaginal it is about 1500. So what is the USG pictures? Some signs are very important, like Bartle sign. There is a hyperechoic ring around the gestational sac in adnexal region. Then blob sign in a small inconglomerate mass next to ovary with no evidence of sac or embryo. The adnexal sac with fetal pole and cardiac activity is most specific. The corpus luteum is useful guide when looking for ectopic pregnancy, as present in 85% cases in ipsilateral ovary. In normal pregnancy, it happens from where the ovum releases and the corpus luteum is formed. So it is seen in about 85% of cases in ipsilateral ovary. So this is the picture, hyperechoic ring around the gestational sac in the adnexal region. It is well cleanly seen. There is a hyperechoic ring-like structure in the adnexal region of gestational sac. This is the ring sign, a hypoechoic ring around the extrauterine gestational sac. After sonography, next come to the blood test, the beta Cg assay. So single beta Cg of little value, we have to done serial beta Cg is required. The result of initial USG is confusing. So when SCG level is less than 2000 international unit per liter, doubling time helps to predict the viable versus non-viable pregnancy. So rise of beta SCG less than 66%, in 48 hours indicate ectopic pregnancy or non-viable intrauterine pregnancy. So biochemical pregnancies apply to those women who have two beta HCG values more than 10 international units per liter. The third blood test can be done in the serum progesterone. It is theoretically it is to learn, but practically not done. So any level less more than 25 nanogram per ml is suggestive of normal intrauterine pregnancy. Level less than 15 nanogram per ml is suggestive of ectopic pregnancy. And the level less than 5 indicative of non-viable pregnancy irrespective of its location. And four, the most important, the gold standard is diagnostic laparoscopy and can be done only when the patient is hemodynamically stable. It confirms the diagnosis and removal of ectopic mass can be done at the same time. So the gold standard technique is diagnostic laparoscopy. And how another method for diagnosis is dilatation and curettage. It recommended in suspected cases of incomplete abortion versus ectopic pregnancy. So identification of decidua without chorionic villi is suggestive of extrauterine pregnancy. Varicella endometrial reaction is suggestive but not diagnostic. The gold standard diagnostic method is your laparoscopy. Other novel tests can be done like placental protein PP14 decreases in ectopic pregnancy, pregnancy associated plasma protein A, then your this PA, PPC, then CA125, AFP, alpha fetoprotein elevated in ectopic pregnancy, your gastroendothelial growth factor, fetal fibronectin, and the mass spectrometry. These are other tests which are practically not done. So, what are the differential diagnosis if the patient comes with ectopic? What other things may happen with patients is like rupture of corpus luteum of pregnancy. Sometimes it is misdiagnosed as ectopic pregnancy, which may happen with rupture of corpus luteum also. Then rupture of Chuckley's cyst and the twisted ovarian cyst if the patient came with severe pain. The other differential diagnosis other than ectopic may be twisted ovarian cyst. Then torsion or degeneration of the pedunculated fibroid. Then your incomplete abortion. Then acute appendicitis. Then your perforated peptic ulcer. And then renal colic and splenic rupture. These are the 9 other differential diagnoses of acute ectopic pregnancy. And the differential diagnosis for chronic subacute ectopic is like pelvic abscesses, your pyosalpinx, then sepsis, uterine fibroid, salpingitis, with retroverted gravid uterus, or any epidural. These are the differential diagnoses for chronic subacute ectopic pregnancy. So how can we manage? It is divided into 3 categories. First is expectant management, second the medical management, and last and the final management is surgical management. So under medical management, it can be given as local, systemic. In local, we can do USG or laparoscopic salpingocentesis. So in medical management, we give your methotrexate injection, potassium chloride, prostaglandin, hyperosmolar glucose, actinomycin D, or mifepristone. These are the medical management of ectopic pregnancy. And in the systemic form, the anti-cancerous drug methotrexate can be given. It can be introduced, this medication can be introduced laparoscopically. And the surgical management is the radical management or conservative. Radical means to remove the ectopic mass with the tube. So salpingectomy can be done. Conservative means we have to preserve the fallopian tube for the future pregnancies. So we can do the salpingotomy, a segmental resection, or milking of fimbrial expression to preserve the fallopian tube. So the principle is resuscitation and the laparotomy or laparoscopy. So any anti-shock treatment, IV line made patient crystalloid is started. Blood sample for all investigation to be sent. Polycatheterization to be done. Colloids or volume replacement to be started as early as possible. So laparotomy principle is very quick in and quick out. Rapid exploration of abdominal cavity is done. Salpingectomy is the definitive surgery sent for histopathological study. Blood transfusion to be given. Auto transfusion only when the donated blood is not available. Second is laparoscopy. The preferred method if hemodynamically is very stable. Tubal patency, no significant difference. Followed by similar number of uterine pregnancy and shorter operative time. And salpingostomy is done where the size of the pregnancy is less than 2 cm in size. About 10 to 15 mm incisions. Size of incision is given in the abdomen. So this is one picture where the fetus is seen in the fallopian tube, and it is very clearly visible all parts of the fetus, and it is the ruptured case. The management of unruptured ectopic pregnancy, the option given to the patient is surgical. In unruptured, it can be go for surgery. If surgically administered, medical management and medical treatment and the expectant management. So what are the identification criteria for the patient with expectant management? Can we go for any tubal pregnancies only? Hemodynamically is very stable, then no rupture or bleeding is present, then adnexal mass of, it is most important the size, it should be less than 3.5 centimeter without any heartbeat. And the initial beta ECG should be less than 1000 international unit per liter and falling in titer in the single best indicator for the expectant management. So that adnexal mass and the initial beta ECG is the most important marker for the expectant management of ectopic pregnancy, and the success rate is up to 60%. So what are the protocol? Hospitalization with strict monitoring of clinical symptoms. Daily hemoglobin estimation is to be done. And serum beta ECG monitoring 3 to 4 days until it is less than 10 international unit per liter. And transvaginal sonography to be done twice a week. So spontaneous resolution is occur in 72% cases, while in 28% we will need to laparoscopic salpingostomy. In spontaneous resolution, it may take about 4 to 67 days, means mean day is 20 days for the serum beta ECG to return to non-pregnant level. The percentage fall in serum beta ECG by day 7 is a better indicator than the percentage fall by the day 2. So warning, tubal pregnancies have been known to rupture even when serum beta ECG levels are low. So the thing is always to be remembered, any beta ECG level, the rupture can happen in ectopic pregnancy. So what are the medical management? The surgery is the mainstay of treatment of choice in worldwide. So medical management may be tried in selected cases. So candidate for methotrexate, unruptured gestational sac of less than 3.5 centimeter without cardiac activity. And beta ECG should be less than 10,000 international unit per liter. A persistent ectopic after conservative surgery. So this is a candidate for the methotrexate management. So the physician checklist is the complete blood count to be done, LFT, liver function test, the renal function test, and the serum beta ECG to be done. Transvaginal sonography within 48 hours, and obtain the informed consent. And if the patient is RH negative, the anti-D immunoglobulin to be given to the patient. So what are the routes of administration of methotrexate? It can be used as oral, intramuscular, intravenous, usually along with folinic acid. Resolution of the tubal pregnancy by systemic administration of methotrexate was the first described by Tanaka et al. In 1982. So mostly used as early resolution of placental tissue in abdominal pregnancy, can also be used for tubal pregnancy. Mechanism of action of methotrexate is a folic acid antagonist that inactivates the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase, interferes with the DNA synthesis by inhibiting the synthesis of pyrimidines leading to trophoblastic cell death. Autoenzymes and maternal tissue then absorb the trophoblast. This is the mechanism of action for methotrexate. And to reduce the toxicity of methotrexate, we give an alternate day with the folinic acid. So this is the chart showing the medical management. We can give the methotrexate as a single dose or in multiple dose. In single dose, with the calculation of doses as 50 milligram per meter square of iron injection. So the beta HCG levels at day 4 and 7 to be sent. If difference is more than 15%, repeat weekly till it is less than 5 international units per ml. If difference is less than 15% between day 4 and 7, repeat dose and begin with day 1. If fetal cardiac activity is present at day 7, repeat the day 1 dose. The surgical management if beta HCG is not decreasing or fetal cardiac activity is present after 3 doses. So the last resort to be done is the surgical management if beta HCG level is not falling or if the fetal cardiac activity is present on the day after the 3 doses. So then it is a single dose management. The 2 doses on day 0 or 4 can be given. All of the same as 1 dose regimen. They have to follow the same regimen as for the 2 doses of methotrexate. Then variable doses. So methotrexate 1 gram per kg to be given on the day 1, 3, 5, 7. Measures the beta HCG level on the day 1, 3, 5, 7. To continue the alternate day until beta HCG level decreases by more than 15% in 48 hours. Or 4 doses of methotrexate given. Then weekly beta HCG levels checked until it is less than 5 international units per annum. So what are the advantages of methotrexate management is minimal hospitalization, usually outdoor treatment, and quick recovery. 90% success cases are properly selected. And what are the disadvantages is like side effects like GI system and skin due to methotrexate toxicity on and all. Then monitoring is essential, total blood count to be done, LFT, serum HCG once weekly till it becomes negative. So patient compliance is very important for methotrexate management. So surgically administered methotrexate medical treatment is like toxic side effect. It is like the injection of a trophotoxic substance in the ectopic pregnancy sac or in the infected tube by laparoscopy or by ultrasonographic guided. Or with the one instrument is the telescopic control. It is not done now. So we can introduce that medical management by laparoscopy guided or the ultrasonography guided. So what the instruction we have to? So what are the surgically administered medical treatments? Trophotoxic substances used is methotrexate, potassium chloride, mifepristone, prostaglandin, factor 2 alpha, hyperosmolar glucose solution, actinomycin D. Actinomycin D and methotrexate are both the anti-cancerous drug. The advantage of local methotrexate is it increases the tissue concentration at local site. It decreases the systemic side effects like GI and the skin symptoms and all. It decreases the hospitalization for the patient and greater preservation of the fertility. The follow-up to be done for the beta HCG twice weekly till it's negative less than 5 international per liter. And TBS weekly for 4 to 6 weeks and HCG after 6 months for tubal patency to be done. what is the instruction to be given to the patient is if treatment on the outpatient basis, the rapid transportation should be available. If the patient is not hospitalized, if it is in home, then the transportation should be available for the patient. Anytime any complication of the rupture can happen to the ectopic site. Refrain from alcohol, sunlight, multivitamins with folic acid, and sexual intercourse until the beta HCG is negative. Then report immediately when the vaginal bleeding, abdominal pain, dizziness symptom is present. Failure of medical therapy require retreatment. The chance of tubal rupture is about 5 to 10% and it is required the emergency laparotomy. So what are the surgical management of ectopic? Is first the conservative surgery. We have to preserve the fallopian tube. Can be done laparoscopically or microsurgical laparotomy. A small incision is given in the lower abdomen, and with that, the tubal conservative surgery can be done. So, what are the indications? The patient desirous of future fertility. Then the contralateral tube is damaged or surgically removed previously. So, these are the two main important indications for preservation of fallopian tube. And the choice of technique depends on the location and size of gestational sac, condition of the tubes, and accessibility. So various conservative surgeries are present, like linear salpingostomy is indicated in unruptured ectopic less than 2 cm in ampullary region. Linear incision given in the antemesenteric border over the side and the product removed by the finger. Scalpel handle or with a gentle suction or irrigation. The incision line kept open and it is healed by the secondary intention. So this is the technique for linear salpingostomy. The salpingostomy, the name suggests like it's made and the opening is made and the product of conceptus is removed and it's left open. And it heals spontaneously by secondary intention. The second technique is linear salpingotomy. The incision line is closed in 2 layers with 7-0 interrupted vicryl suture. Here the opening left as it is, but here we have to repair in 2 layers with 7-0 interrupted vicryl suture. Third one is segmental resection and anastomosis. It is indicated in unruptured ischemic pregnancy. End-to-end anastomosis is done immediately or at later date. So these are the common conservative surgery for ectopic pregnancy. Fourth one is milking or fimbrial expression. This is ideal in distal ampullary or infundibular pregnancy. It has got increased risk of persistent ectopic pregnancy. So what are the advantages of laparoscopy? Is it helps in diagnosis, evaluation and treatment. Diagnose other causes of infertility. At the same time, you can diagnose the causes of infertility. Then it decreases the hospitalization, operative time, recovery period and analgesic requirement. And the follow-up after conservative surgery with BP, serum beta HCG titer till it is negative, and if titer increases, then methotrexate can be given in that case. So debatable issue is like which is better or the best option for ectopic, where it is the self-injectomy versus salpingostomy, whether the laparotomy is better than laparoscopy or reproductive outcome with that surgeries and the risk of recurrent ectopic. So now the salpingectomy versus salpingostomy. What are the tubal surgeries? Pregnancy can be treated by partial or total salpingectomy. So salpingostomy or salpingotomy is only indicated when the patient decides to conserve her fertility. Patient is hemodynamically stable, tubal pregnancy is accessible, and the outruptured site should be less than 5 cm in size, and the contralateral tube is absent or damaged. In that case only we can go for salpingostomy or salpingotomy. The choice of surgical treatment does not influence the post-treatment fertility, but prior history of infertility is associated with a marked reduction in fertility after treatment. So, making the choice, the Chaperon et al. In 1993 has prescribed a scoring system based on the patient's previous gynecological history and the appearance of pelvic organs to decide between the salpingostomy and salpingectomy. So what is this score is like fertility reducing factor. So this is the any 1, 2, 3, about 8 points are there. Is to decide the risk of recurrent ectopic pregnancy. Conservative surgery is indicated with a score of 1 to 4 only, while radical treatment is to be performed if the score is more than 5, or is of 5 or more. Then the comparison between the laparotomy versus laparoscopy. The laparoscopy is reserved for patients who are hemodynamically stable. There is a third ectopic does not necessarily require the laparotomy, but if large clots are present, laparotomy should be considered. And the reproductive outcome is similar to patient treated with either laparoscopy or laparotomy. Identical rates for 40% of intrauterine pregnancy, around 12% risk of recurrent pregnancy with either radical or conservative pregnancy is present. So laparoscopic salpingectomy is carried out by laparoscopic scissors and dithyramine or endoloop. After passing a loop of number 1 catgut over the ectopic pregnancy, the stitch is tightened and then the tubal pregnancy is cut and distal to the loop stitch. The excised tissue is removed by piecemeal or in tissue removal bag. Laparoscopic salpingotomy to reduce the blood loss, first 10 to 40 international unit of vasopressin diluted in 10 ml of normal saline is injected into the mesosalpinx. Then the tube is opened to an endomesotic longitudinal incision are given in the tubal pregnancy, and it is done by CO2 laser, argon laser, laparoscopic scissor, or ablating the bleeding points with bipolar dithyramine or fine dithyramine knife. The tubal pregnancy is then evacuated by the suction irrigation. If there is a persistence of ectopic pregnancy, this is a complication of salpingotomy or salpingostomy when residual trophoblast continues to survive because of incomplete evacuation of ectopic pregnancy. So diagnosis is made by because of raised postoperative beta HCG, and if untreated, can cause life-threatening hemorrhage. The risk factors is early ectopic pregnancy, less than 6 weeks amenorrhea, smaller size, less than 2 cm or incomplete removal. Preoperative beta HCG level is more than 3000 and postoperative day 1 titer is less than 50% of preoperative level is predictor of persistent ectopic pregnancy. And if the implantation is medial to salpingostomy site, surgery to be done, total or the partial salpingectomy, or if it is selected for medical management in asymptomatic patients, the methotrexate plus leucovorin to be started. So now it is the ovarian ectopic pregnancy. After tubal pregnancies and all management, we come with the ovarian ectopic incidences 1 is to 40,000. The risk factor is intrauterine copper device, any endometriosis on the surface of ovary. Of course, the clinical feature is same as the tubal pregnancy, and the ruptures within 2 to 3 weeks. And the diagnosis on laparotomy. So the main the criteria is Hittelberg criteria. It is categorized as the ipsilateral tube is intact and separate from the sac. Sac occupies the position of the ovary, connected to the uterus by ovarian ligament and ovarian tissue found on its wall by histopathological examination. So, if it is ruptured, then laparotomy, oophorectomy, removal of ovary. And if it is unruptured, then ovarian ridge resection can be done or ovarian cystectomy can be done. And if it is abdominal pregnancy, the incidence is rarest, 7 to 8 times more than the tubal ectopic, 90%, 90 times more than intrauterine pregnancy. Maybe history of irregular bleeding, spotting, nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain may be present. Fetal movement may be painful or high in the abdomen. An abdominal fetal position easy in palpating the fetal parts. Uterus palpated separate from the sac, and the no uterine contraction after oxytocin infusion is noted in abdominal pregnancy. The diagnosis is found by the USG, CT scan or MRI. The type is the primary type, the secondary. To study Ford's criteria for the abdominal pregnancy, both tubes and ovaries are normal in shape and size. There is the absence of any uteroperitoneal fistula. The pregnancy is related to the peritoneal surface and the young enough to rule out the possibility of the secondary implantation. The secondary is the concept is escape out of through a rent from the primary side, which may be located into the intraperitoneal side or maybe in the extraperitoneal, that is the broad ligament. So fate of secondary abdominal pregnancies, death of ovum, complete absorption may be present, then placental separation, massive intraperitoneal hemorrhage, infection, fistula communication with intestine, bladder, vagina or umbilicus. The fetus dies in majority of cases, so it may progress into mummification, adipocyte formation or calcified to lithopedion, and rarely continue to term pregnancy. So the management is urgent nephrectomy irrespective of period of gestation. Ideal to remove entire sac, fetus, placenta and membrane. Placenta may be left if attached to the vital organs. Get absorbed by aseptic autolysis. Then the cervical pregnancy. So implantation occurs in cervical canal or below the internal os. Incidences are seen in 1 in 18,000 cases. The risk factors are previous induced abortion, previous cesarean delivery, Asherman syndrome, in vitro fertilization, disease, exposure, and neomyoma of cervix. So how can we diagnose in case of cervical pregnancy is the clinical criteria named as Coleman and Macklin. So any uterine bleeding, no clamping following amenorrhea, cervix distended, thin-walled, soft in consistency, and large uterine fundus may be palpated. Internal os is closed and external os is partially open due to the presence of pregnancy in the cervical canal. And the USG criteria, as the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology has given the picture as the echo-free uterine cavity or the pseudogestational sac can be seen. There is a decidual reaction. Then the uterus is seen like hourglass with balloon, cervical canal, gestational sac in the endocervix. The closed internal os in the placental tissue is seen in the cervical canal. The diagnosis by the histopathological criteria is Rubin's criteria. Presence of occlusion to placenta, placental attachment to the cervix must be below the entrance of the uterine vessel. The fetal elements absent from corpus uteri. So what are the differential diagnoses of cervical pregnancy? Cervical carcinoma, cervical submucous fibroid, trophoblastic tumor, or the placenta previa. So how can we manage the cervical pregnancy is the surgical is a mainstay therapy in past, but now the recent proposed management is medical management. So in past the surgical management is like radical surgery and the removal of the uterus, the hysterectomy, or conservatively we can do the dilatation and curettage. The risk of torrential bleeding may be present. In later cases, cerclage, Benston, McDonald, or the Shirodkars, cervical and cerclage to be done. Due to the pregnancy present in the cervical canal is incompetent or remained open. So in that case, a cerclage to be done. Then the transvaginal ligation of the cervical branch of uterine artery. Then angiographic uterine artery embolization to be done. And intracervical vasopressin injection. Foley's catheter as tamponade to be done in cases of torrential bleeding. In case we have to go for DNC and if it has happened in land up to the torrential bleeding, these are some techniques to stop the bleeding. And the recent proposed medical management is single or combination or adjunct to surgery, methotrexate or clindamycin. Potassium chloride etoposide can be given in cervical pregnancies. What happened if corneal pregnancy is occurred? The site is implantation occurs in the rudimentary horn of bicornuate uterus. So the corneal pregnancy is commonly seen with the abnormal uterus, like congenital abnormality of uterus, like bicornuate uterus. So course rupture of horn occurs by 12 to 20 weeks. And the differential diagnosis like interstitial tubing pregnancy, painful ureomyoma along with pregnancy, ovarian tumor with pregnancy, or having any asymmetrical enlargement of uterus, implantation into cornu of normal uterus is something like called the angular pregnancy. And the treatment is affected cornu with pregnancy is removed. Hysterectomy to be done if there is a very bleeding is happened during the surgery. You may land up with a hysterectomy also. And hysteroscopically guided suction curettage if the communication with the cervix is patent. What is heterotypic pregnancy? Coexisting of intrauterine and extrauterine pregnancy at the same time. So incidence is 1 in 30,000 cases. With assisted reproductive technique, it is seen about 1:7,000 patients, and with ovulation induction, 1:900. More likely, assisted reproductive technique is present with heterotrophic pregnancy, the rising visualization title after DNC also, and more than one corpus luteum at laparotomy. We can find. So management depends on the site where the pregnancies happen. Ectopic site may be removed with continuation of intrauterine pregnancy. In Rh negative patient, Rh immunoglobulin dose of 50 microgram is sufficient to prevent the sterilization. Then the next site of pregnancy is interstitial pregnancy. It is seen in 2% of cases and it ruptures late at 3 to 4 months. It is the longest survival pregnancy in ectopic. And the fatal rupture, severe bleeding as both uterine and ovarian artery supply are gone. Early and unruptured, local or iron methotrexate with follow-up to be done. Then cornual resection by laparotomy may be done. There is a high risk uterine rupture in subsequent pregnancy. So if rupture is happened, then the hysterectomy is indicated in that cases with the interstitial ectopic pregnancy. So cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy. It is recently reported. So UHG shows an empty uterine cavity and gestational sac attached low to the uterine segment of cesarean scar. The clinical feature is as similar to threatened or inevitable abortion. Diagnosis is made by Doppler imaging, confirms the cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy. So management is methotrexate injection can be given, and the hysterectomy in multiparous women. In young patient, resection or resuturing of the scar may be done in high risk of rupture. Other rare types of ectopic pregnancies, multiple ectopic pregnancy after hysterectomy, primary splenic pregnancy, primary hepatic pregnancy, retroperitoneal pregnancy, diaphragmatic pregnancy. Any other rare types of pregnancy, ectopic pregnancy can happen anywhere. So mortality in general population is about 10 to 15%, mainly due to hemorrhage. So summary and the key points are incidence of ectopic pregnancies rising while maternal mortality from it is falling because of increase of awareness and presence of new modalities of technique and method to diagnose as early as possible. Ectopic pregnancy can be diagnosed early before it ruptures. With recent advances in immunoassay to detect the beta Hg level, high resolution USG and diagnostic laparoscopy. Diagnostic laparoscopy is the gold standard method for diagnosis. There has been a shift in a management from ablative surgery to conservative fertility preserving therapy. So laparotomy should be done when it is in doubt. The choice today is laparoscopic treatment of unruptured ectopic pregnancy. Careful monitoring and proper counseling of the patient is mandatory. So with that, we have done our class with ectopic pregnancy.